Our panelists now. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome to our webinar today. This is part of our Quarantined with Qualtrics webinar series. And today's topic is business continuity during a time of crisis. I'm Amy Ankrum. I'm the president and CEO of Qualtrics, and I'm looking forward to helping moderate our discussion today. We have some fantastic panelists here for you. We're very appreciative of their willingness to share their experience right now. I think we're all very interested in learning from each other during this time and certainly stronger together through it. A couple of housekeeping items. We are recording today's webinar, so we'll be sending that to all of our attendees afterwards. And at any point, you can submit questions today. There's a chat feature in Zoom that you can type those into, and we'll do our best to get to those at the end of today's discussion. Just a little bit about Qualtrics. Qualtrics provides quality and compliance management software. We work with organizations that make a critical contribution to society. And by virtue of the very important work that our customers do, they're under a lot of compliance pressure. Our software helps organizations to reduce risk, increase efficiencies, and certainly now more than ever, help keep operations going. So we have some tremendous organizations from our customer base represented today. We have BPT Incorporated, El Cajon Crime Lab, and the U.S. Secret Service. They're going to be sharing a little bit about how they've been adapting during the pandemic, talk about some lessons learned, best practices, and now that we're starting to see some states reopen, we'll touch a little bit on some of the reentry planning and thoughts. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and let the panelists introduce themselves. If when I go to you, if you want to just share your name, your role at the organization, and tell us a little bit about the important work that your organization does. And I think for a little fun, since we're all looking for a silver lining during these times, how about something about the best part of quarantine life right now? So with that, I'm going to go to Shane Hager first.
Hey everybody, I'm Shane Hager. I'm a quality assurance manager for VPT Incorporated, fortunately based out of Blacksburg, Virginia, right down the road from Qualtrics. So it makes it very nice to get to see those guys throughout the year. VPT manufactures high reliability DC to DC power converters and EMI filters for space and military applications. We support customers like Lockheed Martin, Boeing's, NASA. Some of the programs we've supported is the Mars rover program, GPS satellites and things like that. So hopefully if your Wi-Fi goes out though, don't call me. Anyway, one of the funnest things I think about being in quarantine is the wardrobe. Getting to spend all the time with my 2-year-old son, who will probably knock my computer over and jump on my lap 12 times during this 2 hours, and really just getting to watch Vampirina over and over and over while I'm trying to work all day. So it's great. So thank you.
Thank you, Shane. All right, let's go to Shelly Webster.
Diego, California, and oh, sorry.
You're good. Oh, yeah. Now you're muted. Go ahead. Yeah, I think you're still muted.
Okay.
There we go.
I am in San Diego, California. I am a crime lab manager and a property room manager and the QA manager. I work for a small police department out in the suburbs. We have about 100,000 of population that we serve, and we have about 140 sworn officers. So we provide them with crime scene and latent print development and AFIS searching. So those are the forensic things that we provide. And I also have a full running property room that gets 11,000 items of property a year. So very busy. So during this time, we have been open and providing full service to our customers in our community. So we also are still going out to crime scenes, still processing evidence, and then we're still taking in items from our officers. So the best part probably about this quarantine is teaching my teenage daughter how to bake. And we've been baking goodies for all of our neighbors. And it's kind of nice because they can't refuse because we just leave it on their door and then send them a text. And so everybody's on our street has been enjoying all the baked goods. So that's probably the best part about this. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Shelley. All right, let's go to Kelly Lewis.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kelly Lewis. I'm the Laboratory Director at the U.S. Secret Service. We are located in our headquarters building in Washington, D.C. We service over 150 field offices around the country and the world. So the Secret Service is a premier law enforcement agency focused on protecting the nation's leaders and then also securing the financial infrastructure. So we started in 1865 originally to protect counterfeiting of U.S. currency, and we've expanded those missions into the financial crime space. So my laboratory has the fingerprints and question documents disciplines. So we support both protection through threat letters to the president, for example, or financial crimes. We're seeing a lot of access device fraud, so ATM and gas pump skimming devices that steal credit card information. So we, and then also ink chemistry, and we support research. So through this time, we've, like Shelley said, we've been fully functional. We have been in a primarily remote telework posture and supporting primarily COVID-19 fraud cases over the last couple months, and then also the protection. And I think the best thing about quarantine life, like Shane said, is the attire, not having to wear a suit every day and commute into DC, and also working on my baking skills.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. And certainly, I think you heard from all of our panelists. They are certainly considered essential organizations being called upon to deliver really important products and services right now. So we appreciate what you're doing. I'll add my favorite part of quarantine life, like sounds like you guys. Mine is yoga pants. It's going to be a struggle going back to work attire here. So, all right. Well, thanks for the introductions. I think to start, it'd be good to kind of get a feel for everyone's situation. So our first question, I think, helps do that. And I'm just going to briefly share my screen while to put the question up, and then I'll stop sharing. The question is, what has been your organization's biggest challenge as a result of COVID-19 and moving to a remote workplace? And I'm going to stop sharing. And for this one, we're actually going to go to Kelly first, if you want to take that for us.
Sure. So as a lab, I think we were well positioned to move into a primarily remote telework posture. Our examiners had the capability to telework for the last couple of years. All the examiners have laptops and digital communication tools at their disposal. I think as scientists, we're so used to going to conferences and meeting with our colleagues in person and continuing the education experiences. So I think for us, that's been one of the biggest challenges, especially now in the conference season of the spring and summer. We're really missing that interaction with our colleagues, and it's kind of disappointing that we won't likely have that this year. So we are finding other ways to have virtual continuing education, which is great. I think as an agency at large, VPN access was a challenge when we first went to this remote posture, but our IT professionals quickly facilitated to get all employees access, which has been great. And then our agents and officers who are on the protection side are still having to operate business as usual. They don't have the luxury of teleworking like we do. So they're just taking as much precautions as they can and on the front lines.
Very good. Thank you, Kelly. All right, let's hand it over to Shelley about your organization's biggest challenge during COVID-19.
So our biggest challenge was IT. We were planning, we had just purchased Qualtrics about 6 months ago, and we were upgrading our justice tracks to where it could be accessed remotely. So we were kind of planning on this for the last 2 years. We've been kind of building a system where we could access it from anywhere, but we hadn't quite got there yet. So when this happened, we looked at all of our computers, everything that we had, we took inventory, and we ended up using what we could to get some people home working, and then we had to have people here. So we've created a system where we rotate and we have people working from home, either on their home computers, accessing Qualtrics, or they're working on their phones, or they're working on iPads. And then we have a few laptops that we kind of provided to our city so that they could get people working from home. And then our property room is very large. So we looked at the situation. They were all sitting together in a space where their cubicles were. So we spread them out throughout the property room. So that seemed to work for us. So that was kind of our challenge, was looking at, we are very collaborative and social beings, and we looked and said, wow, we're all sitting together and we have all this space. So we kind of moved everybody apart and then worked through the IT challenge.
Okay, very good. That's helpful. Thank you. And Shane, let's go to you in terms of your organization's biggest challenge during COVID-19.
Being a manufacturer, our biggest challenge, one, is being able to manufacture and be able to safely have our personnel in our manufacturing and our testing areas, because our stations are set up and you have locations that are blocked off for safety because of the equipment or the processes that are, or the materials that are being used in the manufacturer. So to quickly have to go in and separate and move your entire manufacturing and testing and screening and inspection areas throughout your entire facility, as well as come up with schedules for personnel to be able to get their jobs done so product flows through your line, was the immediate initial challenge, because we are an essential company, as you stated, and we have on-time deliveries that, you know, our customers really depend on. So being able to navigate the physical issues with manufacturing and screening, as well as dealing with potential supply chain issues. So we're having to reach out to all of our suppliers and do a lot of additional follow-ups and insurance to make sure that we have materials to manufacture products and things. So those were our initial largest challenge. The other side of VPT is we are very much a design firm as well. So having engineering teams to be able to collaborate with one another while working from home, personnel like myself who has children, and you're here with your kids and you can't go into the office an hour or two a day, you know, the infrastructure to be added so everybody could collaborate easily was probably our second challenge. So.
Okay, very helpful. Well, I think we heard a wide range of things, from just concerns over employee safety, individuals that have not been working remotely before now being remote. Obviously, some good things had already been happening in your organizations around technology that certainly helped ease some of the situation, but just the different circumstances. And obviously, I think you guys all represent very different organizations, so it's interesting to hear what that looks like. So I think, you know, for our next question, I'll share my screen again. We can talk about, you know, now that we understand more of the challenges, what's been most helpful in continuing work during this time? And for this question first, we will go to Shelley.
Well, one of the things that's been helpful for us is purchasing the Qualtrics 6 months ago, because we were in a transition where we were getting our quality assurance program onto Qualtrics. So that was going to be a tedious task. And so that was a task that could be done remotely. And we didn't need to have a computer from our department. We could do that at home on our computers, and we could work on workflows. So that's been very helpful. We also have been able to access some of our other files, and we've been able to do stuff that normally we would do here from home. So we've been kind of looking at all the different technology. We may purchase some other stuff to make it to where we can do 90% of our work maybe from home and come in a very limited amount of time, so that we can stay protected from each other. And that way, when we do go back to a normal life, I think that this is a little more efficient, and we will be able to pick up some of these technologies going forward.
That's great. Yeah, and I think what normal looks like going forward will be probably never quite like it was before March. So Let's take this to Shane with what's been most helpful in continuing your work during this time.
For VPT, the initial thing would have to be our information technology department. When all this started happening and we started getting directives down from our government, and as well as our internal management, concerned with personnel safety, information technology just really stepped up, and they had a very large task because we have operations outside of the country. We have multiple facilities throughout the United States as well. So being able to support all of these companies with basically a 4 or 5 person team as quickly and successfully as they did, I can't give enough praise to those guys. For our managers in our company, having just basic common sense on what has to be done, when and where, and allowing some additional flexibility that we're not used to having to keep people safe while allowing us to keep things going has really been very important. And last but not least by far is the attitude of our personnel. We're very fortunate at VPT that we have a very strong family environment. Everybody cares about our customers and trying to do the best job we can do. And everybody's willingness to come in on possibly a staggered shift. So that way these 3 manufacturing personnel can be in while these 6 or 7 are out. Their families supporting, the craziness at work 2 days, and then spouses having to use vacation time and stuff to watch the kids so they can come in, so really I think our IT staff and then just everybody as a family, whether it's immediate family of our coworkers or ourselves, has really been the difference maker for VPT.
That's fantastic. New kinds of heroes coming out through all of this for sure. Flexibility being called on from all of us. All right, Kelly, how about you?
Sure. At the Secret Service lab, knowing that we were probably going to move into a pretty significant remote telework posture, we tried to front load the examiners with as much lab work as possible. So in the weeks leading up to the decision to move primarily remote, the examiners were busy processing as much evidence as possible just to queue it up so they could do the examinations remotely and the report writing and review. So just prior to going telework full-time, the fingerprint operations branch had implemented a software tool called Midio, LatenWorks. It allows the analysis and comparison of fingerprints, all of the case notes and documentation, and then as well as the technical and admin review to be done electronically. So that was perfect timing, so that group can continue their examinations and the tech review, and we can still be supporting our customers in a remote posture without having to go into the lab just to transfer paper case files to each other and print out documents. And so trying to adopt that into the other groups and be a little bit more ingenuity about how we're doing business right now and kind of thinking outside the box. Not everything needs to be printed and scanned anymore. So Qualtrics has assisted with that, as well as we use Skype for Business as an agency. So that's our instant messaging and our communication tool. We have been very familiar with using that prior to this. So it's very easy to kind of check in with employees quickly, and you can share your screen. So it's great for meetings. We've been able to share presentations or work off common documents without having to email files back and forth or have a lot of telephone conferences. Sometimes it's kind of nice to be able to see your employee's face after a couple months, remember what we all look like. So those have worked very well for us.
Excellent. Yeah, I think we're all very thankful for technology and for strong teams pulling together through this. All right, we're going to move on to our next question here. Are there new best practices your organization has put into place for business continuity during COVID-19? So for this one, we'll go ahead and start with Shane.
So, as I spoke before, VPT had the struggle of being able to have personnel in the office that they have to be there to manufacture product and to test and inspect product. A lot of our support staff can work remotely. In doing this, VPT has provided personnel with additional PTO that is due to daycares and schools closing early in our areas and wanting to make sure that people were able to take care of their families. The other thing, as we talked about, was the staggered manufacturing shifts and inspection shifts and things. We also do staggered meetings, team meetings, and things like that. Just really allowing more people to work remotely that don't have to be in the office. As Kelly and Shelley both have talked about, some of the things like Zoom or Skype. For us, we use Teams. Those things have really become a staple in our day-to-day business right now. I try to have a quick team meeting with my entire group every day just to say, hey, what are you guys struggling with? Is there anything that I can do to help you guys out? And vice versa, we try to flow that between managers as well. So for now, that's kind of our day-to-day norm.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I think, I know for Qualtrics, Zoom's are regular for us, and being able to see each other's faces certainly helps. All right, I think that we'll go to Kelly next on this question.
I think one of the things the Secret Service does well is react to crisis. Our agents are trained to respond very quickly in times of stress and crisis and take in all the information. And so I've been very impressed with our leadership and the communication from all levels of leadership, from the director all the way down to the employees. And they're very, very actively seeking feedback from the employees directly, either through the chain of command or through directed employee surveys, to understand what are those concerns of every employee. Because we have employees all over the country and the world, their situations can vary greatly depending on what region they're in. And as we start talking about reconstitution plans and trying to go back to what normal looks like, that timing and that plan is going to be different for different individuals. And so I've been very impressed with the amount and quality of the communication that has been happening. And as Shane said, your employees are number one, and they're the most important thing, and their families. And so the health and welfare of our employees has been the most important thing. So trying to check in with everybody on a regular basis, make sure they have what they need, make sure their families have what they need. We've also secured PPE for every employee directly, so they don't have to worry about that themselves. So if you have to come into the laboratory, how do you do that safely? We've tried to take the stress and the fear out of that because we do have to continue operations and supporting our missions.
Thank you, that's helpful. I think a big consideration for all of us is we're looking for reentry, especially groups who have been mostly all remote. Yeah, making sure we have the proper materials, PPE for our teams is important. So Shelley, we'll go to you with the question. Are there new best practices for your organization that you put in place due to COVID-19?
So we're first responders. So there's several new best practices that we put in place. We have cleaning logs now. We clean countertops. We clean door handles. We're cleaning all over, which actually is going to make us a better organization for our evidence, because it's not only are we cleaning away COVID-19, but we're cleaning away any residual DNA that we might have or any other issues. We've also really ramped up the PPE. When we go out to crime scenes, we'll be wearing masks now. That wasn't a requirement before, so that's going to be one of our new best practices, is that we'll be wearing the proper PPE now. And I think just being more aware of our surroundings is going to be a new best practice, because we're very aware now of who is coming in, who's going to be in which space. We need to be considerate of others. Maybe in the past, we weren't as concerned. People had colds, they come in, they work through it. Now we're going to be a lot more considerate of our fellow colleagues. And if we're feeling ill, we're going to go home. So we have a lot of things that are going to be in place that are going to come out of this that I think are going to improve the organization, as well as our meeting format. We have changed now to doing virtual meetings on Teams, which is very efficient. I was on a meeting last week, and it's a meeting where I have to drive. So I have to go there, meet, spend time in the car, and then come back. And so I realized how efficient this is. I just go to my computer, log on, and I'm there for the meeting. So I think going forward, there is going to be some changes, but I think they're going to be positive.
That's great. Even just some areas will get some new efficiency gains from these changes we've made. That's fantastic. This next question, I'm actually just going to get two perspectives on it because I think we'll get some different answers from a lab perspective versus manufacturing. So let me share real quick here. And the question is, what strategies have you put in place to ensure your critical third parties are prepared so there's few interruptions to your organization as possible? And for this one, I'm going to go ahead and throw it back to Shelley and let her kind of give the lab perspective on that, and then we'll have Shane respond.
So we're still having supplies come in, and we're still sending out items for testing. And so we have set up communication with our vendors, and we've set up communication with our other laboratories that are analyzing our items. And we have an area now where we can receive packages. So if somebody's not available, we can leave it there and then come and get it. So that was one of our concerns, is things are coming in, and if we're not here every day, then how are we going to be able to get our stuff? So we've set up kind of a system with our vendors, and it seems to be working well. Although I will say we're constantly improving and constantly changing. So we may come up with better ideas in the future, but for now it seems to be working.
That's great. Shane, how about you from a manufacturing perspective with critical third parties?
So for manufacturing, basically, it's unfortunately a little bit business as usual. And what I mean by that is the supply chain can't stop. So every day we are receiving products and materials and things. So what we've had to do is put in place pick up and drop off stations within our facility that allows delivery personnel to come into a certain area that's monitored by VPT personnel, and they can drop off, let us know that they're there. We have to work out how we sign for packages, safely. They drop them off. You have your gloves, you have your own pen, your PPE that they've issued to the personnel. For getting those materials even into our system, now we have to think about, do we wipe down all the outer cartons before we start taking materials out to even see, what we've received? So there has been a lot of additional burden that's been put on our receiving team and our stockroom personnel and our inventory personnel, because now you have to really be conscious of touching things that are just coming in. We get things from overseas. We get things domestically as well. So really a lot of concern and care and focus has been on just personnel safety, getting the packages, safely versus timely, and, just adjusting the schedule on the back end as we can to make sure everybody is able to process things as they can. So for us, that is one of the largest implementations we've had to do to keep our supply chain moving internally, that is.
Okay. That's helpful. Yeah, I think, again, changes to schedule, that's challenging. So good communication. I think in both lab and manufacturing, hearing a lot about just overall process and policy change. Whoever thought we'd have to wipe down the packages, but it's good you guys have thought through all of that and putting employee safety first. So I think this next one's interesting. You're all organizations that fall under some sort of industry or regulatory standard. you know, potentially getting audited by other organizations or customers. So let me share our next question here. All right. And it is, how are you preparing for important quality and/or supplier audits during this time? And will these be conducted remotely? And for this one, we'll go to Kelly first.
We actually just completed our external ISO 17025 ANAB surveillance assessment last week. So this was perfect timing for this question. So thankfully we were able to upload all the documentation and start the audit or the assessment just prior to going fully remote. So we didn't have to navigate that part of it. So all of the documents were there, and then the assessor did all of the review remotely. And then if there was any subsequent documentation, supplemental documentation that was needed, we were able to pull that either through our VPN access to our network drives or from Qualtrics. So nobody had to go into the office and try to track down a binder and photocopy and scan documents, as we probably would have done in the past if we hadn't had Qualtrics as our quality management documentation system. So that was great. And then we were able to do a remote closeout meeting. We just had a call with the assessor, and rather than having, you know, the auditors come on site, potentially in the future, what our full assessments look like could be different. Could be interesting how the accreditation companies decide to handle things in the future rather than traveling auditors to a lab for a week. With the whole team and paying for lodging and transportation, that maybe more of it could be done virtually, and you could even do the interview process and observations remotely. So it could be really interesting to see what happens in the future, but it worked really well for us this year.
Excellent. I couldn't agree more. It could be a new era in auditing going forward. Certainly some interesting efficiency gains there as well. Shane, how about you?
Very similar to Kelly, VPT finished up our annual ISO recertification audit on, I think it was March 16th or March 17th. So that was about a week and a half before everything really started peaking as far as stay-at-home orders and things like that. Since then, VPT has basically prohibited any outside visitors from entering the facility, our facility, or any of our contract manufacturers or other sales offices and marketing facilities. The challenge for VPT is to be able to allow customers to perform source inspections. What that means is prior to shipment of a group of product, a representative from the company would come out to VPT on site and actually do a hands-on physical inspection, and then a 100% review of the manufacturing and the testing data of each specific serial number or product that we're shipping to the company. And they would approve that on site prior to releasing the shipment to the customer. Now we are challenged with being able to figure out how to do that remotely because in our world, you know, you have to take physical dimensions to make sure everything meets drawings and stuff. So we are trying to support those efforts by using something like Zoom or Skype or even FaceTime on our phones, and allowing our inspectors to perform those while somebody videos and watches them do that live. And you can look at the measuring equipment and see the results. And then using Qualtrics, we can give them access to the data packs and allow the auditors to come in as a guest in our system, which actually is really efficient. And I think we have a few customers now that, as Kelly said, might start going that route to make it a lot more efficient for future use. So some very good positives could come out of this, hopefully, moving forward. So.
Well, that sounds like impressive handling of a tough situation with that one for sure. How about you, Shelley, with auditing?
So some of our audits will be done remotely, and some will still have to be done hands-on, like our property inventory, where we have to inventory all of our items. That will have to be done in-house, but we're able to have data in the system, and then they're able to decide who's going to be doing it at which month. So basically the individuals will be isolated. We just had a surveillance with A2LA similar where we uploaded everything, and then if they had questions, they could reach out to us. So I envision our internal audits, external audits going forward will be having, as Shane said, a guest in our Qualtrics, having our documents in there, and then having either Teams or Skype or FaceTime, some other technology to where they can interview our analysts. And I think that's how we'll be going forward for a while. So, and it is very efficient because everything is right there. They don't have to run around looking for binders, and everything's in one place. So that's how we'll be doing it.
That's great. And we've been giving some tips and tricks, I know, to customers lately on handling auditing through Qualtrics. So that's something we can certainly share as follow-up for anybody interested, how to give your auditor a guest login and things of that nature, incorporating video into your Qualtrics. So that's really good to hear that you all are maximizing that. And I've been impressed with the accrediting bodies. I think they are working hard to get good information out there about the remote audit process and things to be doing and looking for. So I appreciate groups like ANAB and A2LA and the work they're doing to help you all with that. All right, so we've talked about technology, and I know we've hit on Qualtrics some already, but let's go on to our next question, because I think we'd like to just talk a little bit more specifically about your Qualtrics usage and how Qualtrics has contributed to the way your organization functions and what role it has played in business continuity during COVID-19. I know talking with some of you, you're using Qualtrics in different ways than you might have been expecting. So I'd love to kind of talk about that a little bit. Let's go to Shane first.
Okay, so Qualtrics for VPT is really the heart and soul of our quality management system. It houses everything from document control, corrective preventative actions, management reviews, and many other processes for finance, information technology, executive management, quality engineering, and so on. The surprise has been the things that we took for granted that we do on site that was previously non-Qualtrics related, that now you have 3/4 of your team working from home, and the task comes, the email comes in and you say, uh-oh, we can't do this. So I was immediately challenged with about 6 or 7 processes that were still hard copy, paper to paper, desk to desk, that nobody's in the office to push these things around. So I immediately had to go to our procedures and refresh my memory on what the process was and the specific details, and then start cranking out workflows and test them with 2 or 3 people real quick. And, for some of these things, they were urgent. So, I'd only have 2 or 3 days to really design, implement, test, and release and notify the company, hey guys, here's how we have to do this now for the foreseeable future. The good thing about that is I have found that, one, it has wrapped up our paperless initiative that I've had on my plate for many years, and it's helped us tie in a few other systems that we were using standalone with Qualtrics and stuff. So just the ability to go in and make it what you need it to be, still for me is the most valuable and respectable thing about the system, because it will work for you as creative as you can be. So it's been fantastic for this endeavor.
That's excellent, Shane. We're really glad to hear that. And, I think it is interesting how situations like this uncover those processes that you just didn't realize would get hung up, and giving you ways to automate them. And for any of our customer base that's on, I think you guys may know Shane's one of our expert workflow individuals. He uses them quite extensively in the product. So always a good one to get a hold of at a user conference. All right, let's see, I lost my cue here. The next person we'll go to is Shelly on this question.
So like I said before, we purchased Qualtrics about 6 months ago. We purchased it for our quality management, our quality assurance system, and I had no idea the usability of it. So I thought, okay, we'll get all of our quality documents on there and we'll be able to access them. And when I started seeing the workflows, and like Shane said, when we went home to work remotely, I realized that a lot of our processes could be done through Qualtrics. So I've implemented Qualtrics in our property room and in our laboratory. So it's not only for our quality system, but it's also doing other processes for us. And that became challenging to train my property room. So we actually did a share of our screen, and I walked them through it from my house, and they were at their computer and they could see how we could keep our documents on there. We could have workflows for all of the activities in the property room and keep track. So it's been great so far. Like I said, 6 months into it, we have been very happy that we purchased it and well worth every penny. It's been able to allow us to shift our workforce. And without it, I'm not sure we would have had to been in the lab. A lot of our activities would have had to been done here. So it's been great. So.
Thank you, Shelley. Appreciate that. I know you shared when you had the hepatitis breakout the last time when you didn't have Qualtrics, how difficult that was. So very glad we were able to get in before this occurred. Kelly, how about you?
For us, Qualtrics has allowed us to continue business as usual for the most part as far as the quality assurance side of the house. We've been online for about 1.5 years with Qualtrics. My quality assurance manager, prior to this, she would telework 2 days a week, every week because of Qualtrics and because of her job. You know, she kind of needed that quiet time to be able to work on document updating and kind of all of the management side of the house on the quality side. And so this has transitioned well for her and for the rest of the team. So we're actually conducting our management review remotely right now, looking to finalize that. We onboarded a fingerprint specialist during all of this. So her second day on the job, we had the stay-at-home order. So having all of the training records and training protocols and documentation in Qualtrics has allowed her to be able to start her training program remotely. And so we don't have to wait to be on site to be able to share SOPs and training plans and expectations, and we can move forward on that. So it's been very beneficial for us, and continuing our preventative action workflows, like Shane mentioned, and having that time to brainstorm additional workflows and things, and then also integrate Qualtrics in our LIMS system and Midio, so they're all seamlessly connected.
Excellent. Thank you all for sharing. We're certainly proud to be helping your organizations during this time. I think virtual onboarding's interesting. I know we've been doing that here as well, and using our workflow capability differently through that. So that's good stuff. All right, moving on. Let's see. I know you're all leaders in your different organizations, and I think now we're seeing states start to reopen. We're starting to talk about re-entry into the workplace and what does that look like. So for this next question, from your perspective, how do you plan on returning to a normal workplace atmosphere post-COVID, or are you expecting a new normal? And we'll go to Shelley on this one first.
Well, I'm anticipating a new normal for a while. So for now, I think we will continue having limited contact with each other, but still be there for each other. So we'll use more electronic teams to interact. And we will be probably still keeping our shifts at different times. It seems to work out better too, because we're here on days that we would normally be here, and it provides more service to our customers. So we'll probably continue with that for a while, and we'll continue our cleaning. And we also, I forgot to add on the last question that we also put all of our training into Qualtrics and created training for our new employees, and we'll continue to do that in the new normal, where we have a lot of the training in there and very limited interaction, and then we'll do some hands-on. But I think going forward, we'll just be more aware of our surroundings and more aware of the people around us and how we can work together but not be together, if that makes sense.
Thank you. It definitely does. Kelly, how about from your standpoint, returning to the workplace?
Very similar to what Shelley's lab is planning on doing. I think this will be our new normal for a long time. So we'll continue to send examiners into the laboratory on a very limited basis when necessary. And we've been trying to kind of proactively coordinate work. So we know exactly who's going to be in the building and when, because we share other space with other groups. So we want to make sure that, we don't overload, the number of people on the floor or in the building. So just communication, and we've staggered PPE across the different spaces to make sure that people don't have to go very far or go into somebody else's space to be able to grab the PPE that's needed. So that's been very helpful. Also just the communication, trying to check in with everybody. And I know some of the groups have been doing virtual happy hours just to kind of keep that personal connection with each other. Because we lost the water cooler, and the breaks and the lunches and kind of the social aspect that comes with working in a team environment. So trying to brainstorm how we can stay connected on a personal level as well as a professional level. During this remote time, we actually transitioned to a whole new LIMS system. We were able to remotely install it. And so all of the build out of the modules is happening remotely, and we're actually ahead of schedule, which is great because I think we don't have all the other distractions, in the day-to-day business operations. So that will help us significantly being able to have all of the electronic integration through LIMS. And then we'll continue the remote continuing education. I think especially right now, it's really important to make sure the examiners stay engaged in their field and with their communities, and also take the opportunity where you do have some downtime, catch up on those kind of more extensive trainings or like contract procurement, some of those kind of trainings that end up on the back burner because they require 40 hours. Well, who has 40 hours in a work week to dedicate to that? So we're really taking advantage of that. So we'll continue.
Excellent. A fun tip for the happy hours, our HR director has been doing this trivia that you fill out online, and we kind of compete online. So if you're looking for another way to kind of jazz those up, that's been a blast. So it's been fun. Shane, how about your team and thinking about reentry and what that might look like?
Well, I'll tell you, those are two responses that are tough to follow. They covered a lot of good things there. So thank you guys. I won't have to talk as long. Really for us, manufacturing, and our personnel, I think it's all going to be a reevaluation of just company-wide safety, and having a little more thought regarding personal space and best practice as far as cleanliness, utilization of our manufacturing areas and stuff. Because, again, this was a pretty immediate challenge to space this person out a few more feet. You only have a box that you can work in, so you have to get real creative. So I think that we'll have a lot of preventive actions come out of this that will improve what we have if we ever face something like this again. Our supply chain, I think, because VPT's preparation of having enough components and materials on hand, I think our supply chain effect will be limited in any negative impact on there. So really for us, it's just going to be allowing people to come back in, not only as they're comfortable, but as they're able. Amy, as you well know, the schools have been closed. A lot of the summer programs are not going to open up this year. So that puts a lot of families into a very difficult situation, because if you have multiple working parents, where does the kids go? So I think the challenge right now is from a safety aspect of just being conscious, and then a human resource aspect of how can we as managers support our team members who find these difficult circumstances, to allow them to, take care of their families, because, the family comes first. So I think business will be very similar to what it was, but integrating people back into the office, I think, is going to be a case-to-case basis depending on everybody's circumstance.
That's helpful. I think, from everyone hearing, there's phases or different stages to this that we're expecting to see organizations go through. I think you all mentioned this earlier, but just surveying your teams and understanding, what their comfort level is, or even their ability, as you said, Shane, due to childcare and things of that nature. But it's good to hear about, just some of these things that will look very different, the cleaning and what that looks like, the PPE gear being available, even the way you walk through an office, having that be laid out differently for folks. So thank you guys for sharing that. I think that certainly is helpful to hear the considerations you're taking into place. I know at Qualtrics, we're obviously using the software to make sure we're going to be getting sign-offs from employees that they understand the new guidelines and social distancing that's going to be in place. Let's see, I'm checking time, and let me see. I know we do have a couple of questions from the audience, so let's just hit this one more, and then we'll take those questions from the audience that are coming in. So our last question that we had for this was, what changes have you made in your organization that you feel will continue after the pandemic is over? And for this, we'll go to Kelly first.
I think particularly for a law enforcement agency who was not used to teleworking across the agency a lot, this has elucidated a lot of new business operations that your day-to-day operations can continue, and actually continue probably even more efficiently through this remote posture. So hoping that continues, and it shows that not everybody has to commute into DC and fight through the DC traffic just to show up to a meeting in headquarters, like Shelley said, that you can still have efficient work interactions and productive and meaningful without maybe everybody having to be located in the same space. So looking for that to continue. And then also just the telework is a work-life flexibility, especially now, with childcare and schools and things like that. And, there's a lot of stress and anxiety on people, apart from the working environment. So having that flexibility in your day to get the work done, maybe not necessarily in an 8-hour time period in a certain location, gives people a lot of maybe more breathing room and flexibility. And I think they'll work harder and be more productive employees if we give them that flexibility.
That's great. Thank you. All right, Shane, how about you? Changes that you see that'll continue?
I think obviously our newfound use of Qualtrics in a lot of our processes, I think I will continue to grow those and to be able to just do continual process improvements as I'm supposed to. I think that will change the way that we've done a lot of our processes that we found that we had to do in person, but have also found that now we have reporting features on immediate, everybody can go to it. You don't have to find things on people's desks and stuff. So I think better utilization of the system will be good. I think more consciousness about, as you said, how you walk through somebody's office, or if you walk through somebody's office, those little things that you don't think about now people will be thinking about. But really for us, I think probably communication will be much better moving forward. And I think that just overall a team spirit, because we're all having to do this together. Everybody has their, as Kelly said, additional stresses that's beyond work. And I think everybody supporting one another, whether you're side-by-side personnel, whether you're in upper management or whatever your role is, somebody has supported you in doing something that you needed done during this time. So I think a better respect and appreciation across the board for each team member, I think it's just going to make our company stronger and allow us to communicate and understand one another a lot better. So I think that's going to be our biggest change moving forward.
That's wonderful. Very good. All right, Shelley, how about you?
So I agree with both of what Shane and Kelly said, and I'll just add that I think going forward too, we're going to look for ways to be paperless. I think in the past we wanted to be paperless, but people that have been doing this a long time, they like to have their paper. And I think going forward, we're just going to be more of paperless, streamlined, using the tools that are out there and developing better ways going forward. So I think that's how I see it, is any way we can streamline the process. And I'm envisioning when we'll have to purchase some more technology, but going forward, we'll probably have a paperless crime scene unit where we go out and have tablets and everything just kind of feeds into the system and everybody can access their stuff from anywhere. So that's kind of the way I see it going forward.
All right, that's excellent. Certainly making the best of a tough situation. Thanks for sharing. We do have a couple questions. We won't have time to have each of you answer, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw one of those out to you all. For remote assessments and audits, was a video live stream used to view testing? And if so, any insights? So I think potentially, Kelly, do you want to respond to that one? Did you have any?
We didn't, because it was just an external surveillance. We didn't have to do any observations, but I could imagine if you had a full on-site assessment where you would need to do observations, that video remote capability would be very beneficial.
Okay, I see heads shaking. I don't think we've had anyone have to have the video element yet quite. Well, I guess Shane, you do from your suppliers. So, I think that's expected to be coming certainly from the accreditors. Let's see, the next question I see, this one says for Kelly. You mentioned that your IT department was able to overcome issues to establish VPN access for your staff. What helped them get that accomplished? Emergency override of prior rules, added expertise, and do you think a VPN for all staff would have happened without the COVID-19 situation?
Those are great questions. I don't know all of the details on how they were able to execute it, other than it was, number one priority. And so I do know that I think there were some emergency procurement actions that happened. They pushed through, purchasing the additional equipment necessary to do that. I would guess there was probably some overtime of personnel working to get that done. My guess is that probably would not have happened if we hadn't have had a situation where we were forced to have suddenly 8,000 people need a telework capability. It was only a matter of a couple weeks for that to happen. It was pretty incredible.
Great. Yeah, I think all the IT staffs have been stepping up during this time. This next one, I think might be a good one for you, Shelley. What considerations need to be made to eventually bring all examiners back into the lab full time?
So I think we need to have more information from our state. Right now, our state has some guidelines. And one of the guidelines the first guideline is that there's a safe working environment. So right now, I think it's not necessary to have all our examiners here at the same time. And I think for them to be safe right now is we can allow some here different hours, flexibility, and just have a limited. I don't think we can have more than 10 people in an area at a time right now. So once they start opening up more things within the state, then I feel like we will follow suit. But right now we're kind of following those state guidelines, and our state still has limited number of people in an area. So until that is opened up, but we will have more people at crime scenes. And there we're just going to have to wear proper PPE and be aware of everybody and what equipment we're using. So I don't really have a timeline yet.
That's very helpful. We are coming to the end of our hour, and any other questions that come in, we'll look to get those fielded by our panelists and put that into follow-up along with the recording from today. I just want to thank our panelists again, Shane, Kelly, and Shelley. This has been very helpful. Just appreciate you being willing to share your insights and offer help to your industries during this tough time. It's very appreciated. Certainly we appreciate everybody who joined us today, and those will hopefully be listening to the recording later as well. Quick disclaimer, any of the information shared today is the opinion of the presenters based off their experience and knowledge, and not an official endorsement from the company they represent. And again, we'll be getting you the recording as a follow-up, and just thanks so much again to our panelists. So everybody have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.